Hey there guys, it's Metro, and today we are back answering the question that keeps getting asked over and over again on the stream. Why are you using Anima? All the shit I talked about Anima, why are you using it? It's a perfectly understandable question because I said for many months that this was just a complete bait essence. It looks good because people only look at it when they use it and they think, wow, I just did like 120k on a pack of 6 mobs. This is an amazing essence, but in reality, 2 minutes CD, really hard to use, had to maximize the health pool, blah, blah, blah. It was never good. It was just going to do less damage than Crucible, and Crucible was for single target instead of AoE, which historically I always felt like was way more important in dungeons. That hasn't changed. What has changed? Let's talk a couple things here. So this is going to be a video outlining pretty much what we're calling here a health meme build. Hats off to Tagore. Honestly, stuff like this I used to never even think about. Like, I would never consider running something like this that pretty much nobody else on the planet was even thinking about. But it's kind of a combination of maybe about like 5 to 6 things that don't really sound like great decisions on their own. Like, you look at it and you're like, yeah, that's okay, but I probably wouldn't do that one thing. But then you combine all of them together and you start to realize, wow, we're really doing something here. And it's mostly because of the talk about items like this. Devastation's Hour, which has Twilight Devastation on it. These corruption affixes that give you damage based off your health pool are particularly strong for blood DK. But that's not the only thing we're doing here. We've basically turned ourselves into a bit of a kind of like a overemphasis on bulk. Like, when you have well over 1,000,000 health, it's harder to die. Let's put it that way. You'd be surprised because, like I say, all of these things on paper, people might not recommend them, but when they kind of come together, you start to realize that all these different health, like percentage health increases, they really hit each other hard. Like, they really help each other. So yeah, let's talk about the key things. All right, so I would say step 0 on this. If you're not neck 80, I wouldn't even think about this. Just don't even worry about it. Okay, you still got a ways to go. These 3% notches, like there's 6 of them right along the way. As long as you probably got, I'd say if you only have these last 2 to get, you can probably start thinking about it, but it doesn't really start to take off until you're fully maximized your health pool. It's all about health. This is all about having the maximum amount of health as possible. Number 1, to maximize your offense, but also to maximize your defense. So, yeah, if you don't have these things, if they're nowhere in sight, like this is your alt or something like that, I probably wouldn't risk doing this. This is only for a character that you've invested heavily in. You have good corruption on, you know how to play well, and you could, because there's going to be some things that are going to make you play differently. So, and you're ready for that. So after that, it's essences. Essences are an incredibly important part of this. And again, if for some reason you don't have at least 2 of these essences, I would not even consider this. All right. Now, luckily, one of them's Anima of Life and Death. Now, obviously, you don't need rank 4. Just, I guess, rank 3. I don't actually know what non-rank 3s of any of these essences look like anymore. But this one is incredibly good, ironically, and it's not for the major. The major sucks, and the minor is what we're after. But the problem is, the major of all these other ones suck too, frankly. Like, I don't know. You could change it around a bit, and we'll talk about that. But I think this is probably the best option because it does give some offense. It's just not great offense. It's a bait level offense, but it is good. It's definitely better than the major for these 2, I'd say. So, but anyway, Anima of Life and Death's minor is the reason this works. This stacking health buff is incredibly valuable. As you see here, it stacks up to 54,690 health increase. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Anima being the only essence that doesn't increase with your neck level, but I'm fairly confident the minor does. Like, I have to imagine they're just talking about the damage from the major that doesn't, and that's part of why it's a bait essence. But yeah, 54,690. I assume that number is going to go up when my neck gets to 81. I haven't tested it, but maybe you guys know and you could confirm or deny. But either way, that and the healing is extremely small, as you see. 3,000, that's very small. Like, it's going to be like under 1% of my healing over the course of a dungeon. So It's literally just for the health pool. But, you know, like I said, all of this, the focus of this is stacking as many different health increases as possible. So we're also going to use Strength of the Warden. And I'm pretty sure rank 3 is required here. Again, it's been a while now. I don't actually know what is and isn't required. But the miner is amazing. This is a really good miner for 5-mans anyway. You know, the common complaint about it is that you know, you just parried, you might not need a heal. But Blood DK is definitely not in that boat. Let's put it that way. Like, you parry all the time and you always need healing, right? So this does overheal a lot. It usually overheals like 20, maybe even 40%. But still, it's not, again, it's not really for that. That's not why we're using the actual heal. Is just on top of it. We're using it for, I believe, which I believe is part of rank 3. Maximum health of all tank specialization players in your party or raid is increased by 3% stacking. So if if we eventually are going to do this 5 tank stuff again in 5-mans, this is going to be an insane essence for this build. Like, if everybody has this, unbelievable. So yeah, those are the 2 big things for essences. The other 2 are good, and we'll talk about them. But those are mandatory. If you don't have those, don't even consider it. For some reason, you don't even have those, then don't try. This one especially, another 3%. Because, like, all of these things, they kind of just meld into a massive, massive health pool increase. In fact, before I had this, I gained about almost 200k health. Let's put it that way. In combat, I'd say I gained probably maybe even over 200k health, okay? So anyway, the rest of the essences, just Vision of Perfection. This is really good, and this is probably like going to be the best essence by the end of this expansion because our neck keeps going up and up and up. So, a little bit of versatility is always nice. That's 100 free versatility with that on. And then, of course, the cooldown is going to be reduced by 24%. So it's down to 1.1. I think it's like 1.08. You know what I mean? So that's really good. Vamp Blood being basically a 1-minute CD by the end of the expansion. That's really good. I mean, that's a big deal. And then, of course, the heal as well when you activate Vampiric Blood, which you're going to be using a lot. You're going to basically, in this build, you're basically going to be using Vampision. You're going to be using Vampiric Blood like an offensive CD. You're going to use it as often as possible. You're not going to save it for anything at all. And then Null Dynamo. This has nothing to do with this build. And I don't know, maybe this is one to not take. A lot of cases here, it's just getting worse and worse, I feel like. But it's such a strong offensive trait, and the big thing that sucks about this build is you're very weak in single target. Like, your single target offense is very, very low compared to any other build. But you're going to have to make up for that with corruption. That's how this build is going to be viable. So yeah, I take this almost always. Another option that you could do is, because we're changing some other things, you could take Memory of Lucid Dreams, which is really good. The miner, that is really good for that. And again, the heal and the verse and all that, like this could be good. It could be good in this build too. Other people talked about Sphere of Suppression, gaining haste, which is really, really good for this build too. But yeah, there's not really a slam dunk 4th essence. So if there was like a something that you could consider, just putting Anima in the miner, and then you could take Crucible, which we might actually try that in the future. I just really like Null Dynamo. It just feels really good, especially in some dungeons. There's just so much, like King's Rest. I do King's Rest so often, and there's like 3 or 4 times where we're like, oh my god, I'm taking so much magic damage, right? Especially with Zool. So I don't know, it feels really, really good. So that's what I'm using for essences. Now, in terms of Azerite, none of this is actually relevant. The only thing I would say is this chest continues to be the best item in the game. And, this type of Azerite is really what you're after here. Now that you have such a massive, massive health pool, it's going to be a lot harder for healers to top you off. But you're going to do so much more healing yourself. So things like this, any type of like percent healing, or just, healing that benefits from you being kind of low or anything like that, is really what you want. Any additional healing effects, basically, because you now have the health pool to survive hits that, people always memed about it, like Blood DK just gets one shot, because like historically they've been extremely weak on the pull. Like, that's their weakest moment. It still is, but when you have another 200 and some K health from this build, I mean, you'd have to be trading away like a ton of armor to now die to that. Like, the mob is going to have to hit me for over 1 million damage in 1 second, and that's just not going to happen. So, basically, if there are Azerite traits out there that give you health, right? There's one that's like drops on the ground when you're standing in it, you gain health, stuff like that. So if you have one of those, probably use it. The problem is the pieces I've been targeting for 5-mans, they don't have any of it. There's not even I don't even think there's a single item. So I'd say really get this piece, because haste is incredibly important, and this has, which most people agree is the best trait for 5-man's Bloody Runeblade, and then also Bloodright, which is unbelievable. 30-some% uptime on this, 988 haste, absolutely amazing. Refreshes all the time because you're killing stuff constantly. So definitely get this item. These 3 things are going to be really good, but they're not important. They're not. It's not like mandatory. You know, the Azerite traits are almost irrelevant. But let's talk about what is relevant, okay? And we're going to talk now about talents. All right, this is where things start to get really odd, and people probably aren't going to like it. They're going to think, like, you know, if you talk to like theory crafters, they're going to be like, oh, this is not. You don't do this. Looks pretty normal, right? Nothing's really changed except this. Now, a lot of people might regard Ossuary as the single best talent the class has, which is saying something, because Hemostasis and even Bloodworms could be unparalleled in their benefit. The reason Ossuary is so good is because you basically get, I think, what did we say? Yeah, 11.1111 repeating % more death strikes off. You know what I mean? That's a lot. That's another, you know, what's it? 1 out of 7. I don't know. I'm not a mathematician, but either way, a lot more death strikes. And you'd think, well, death strike's a good spell, I'm going to use it more. But in reality, you're going to do more healing with your death strike now because of how the spell works with the higher health pool than you would have without Ossuary. So in order to make this work, you want to take Fallborg. And you think like, oh, losing all these extra death strikes sucks. But all you're actually losing is offense. And this is why the single target offense part sucks so bad. Because without Ossuary, that's just so much less DPS over the course of a single encounter. And it's definitely not ideal. But Fallborg, of course, this has been nerfed like crazy since Legion. It used to be 2%, and this is part of why Blood DK was so overpowered in Legion. That plus Umbilicus, you would just get insane numbers for your health pool and your survival. So it's 1% now, which isn't great, but it's still another 10% at max. And you're going to now focus more on keeping this higher. With Ossuary, you wanted to keep it above 6 kind of at all times, right? You didn't want to lose while you were needing a death strike. But now it's like, okay, well, if you can keep this at 10 for 100% of the dungeon, you'd probably want to do that. Because those death strikes that you do get off, the higher bone shield you have, the more healing it's going to do. And you'd be really surprised. I don't have any concrete math for this video, but you'd be really surprised. I did dungeons. We were comparing like on and off with this setup. And my death strike obviously was used way more in the other build with Ossuary and all that. But this death strike version like heals so much more. So even though I'm getting many less death strikes out, the overall percentage and overall values of my death strikes are just way, way up. Like, even though I've casted it, say, like, probably like 40 times less throughout a dungeon, I've still done probably like 15 to 20% more healing with the spell. So I think that's really the takeaway here. And what that does now is it makes like spells like this, you know what I mean? 15% of your missing health. It makes spells like Bloodworm better. It makes spells like Bone Storm better. Okay, the other thing here, though, is to consider Red Thirst is now actually really, really good for this build. Red Thirst has always been pretty good, but now it's really good because this is going to help you take Red Thirst and, whatever it's called, Vision of Perfection are going to help you take Vampiric Blood to probably like something like a 45-second CD. So if you're thinking about just using it the second it comes off CD, and as long as you're in combat, obviously, yeah, this is what you want. But the thing, Bone Storm, it's not really, again, you're not really using this for offense anymore. Bone Storm used to be like the way to deal offense, but you're not really doing that anymore. Now you're doing it for healing. Like, it's going to be a lot more. 3% of your maximum health every time it deals damage, which, up to 15%, whatever. That's a lot more when you have 200 and some more K health. So that's the big thing here is you're looking for all these health benefits, and you're looking to cash in on, just Death Strike, how it's minimum 7% of your health, right? Like, that's just so much higher. And then the final thing that this was kind of really, I didn't love it, but as you see, Rune of Stoneskin Gargoyle. Now, we talked about Stoneskin Gargoyle, the whole expansion. People constantly bring it up. And if you're not aware of what it is, let me read it out here, because I do want to make it clear on why this is being used, okay? Now, there's actually a great case for not using it too. But I do think if you're going to do this, you really want to sell out to make this work, okay? So this is what it does. It fixes your two-handed rune weapon, your two-handed weapon with a rune that increases armor by 5% and all stats by 5%. So the armor by 5% thing, I mean, we have historically low armor anyway, but the all stats by 5% is the main thing. 5% more stamina, and it's also strength too, but 5% more stamina is very good. And if you follow the trends all expansion, item level is king for Blood DK. That's mostly because secondaries are near neutral, but it's also because armor, strength, and stamina are our best stats. So that's the best way to get that. But this is good for that, right? Like the more gear we get, the better this gets, and the more health we get, the better this gets. So you really want to combine all these. So, you know, you got your 3% from the one thing, you got your 10% from Fall Bulwark, you got the health increase from Anima. Like, these are all stacking up very heavily, and this helps with that. But at the same time, I still believe Fallen Crusader would be very viable here. Increasing your strength is always, like, this is a much better defensive and offensive option typically. But at this point, it doesn't even matter. Like, we're just taking the health increase because it's going to feed into what we're doing way better. But still, this is this is a really, really, really good heal, guys. Like, I'm talking about a great heal. So in the future, I might switch back to this. But right now, Stone Skin Gargoyle is the way to go. As many health increases as you can take. Now, you can also talk about trinkets, right? You could try to find, I know there's like PvP trinkets that give stamina. I don't think there's a single trinket in PvE that gives stamina, but if there was one, it might be valuable for this. But otherwise, now we're all in for item level. You don't even think about equipping something too low item level unless it's got a very important corruption. And the reason that this is important is because you're going to do very little damage. Like, this is, you know, we've been talking a lot about gluttony for vengeance. Basically, this hyper turtle build where you put all of your eggs into one basket, and that basket is surviving at all costs. And that's what this is. You know what I mean? Like, you're taking, like, fundamentally poor talents over talents like this that are going to give you so much versatility, so many options. You're taking, like, essences that are hindering your ability, you know, to maximize your class. But because they're all your eggs are in this basket of get as much health as humanly possible, it's going to make up for that in such a way that you're going to be able to never die unless you make a huge mistake. And then, of course, you're going to get benefit from something like this, right? So this is where it really shines. If you don't have a corruption item that gives you your health, you know, based on your health, I mean, then you probably don't want to do this. Like, I would just say if I didn't have Twilight Devastation now, I had Echoing Void before when they nerfed it, and it still was all right. If you don't have these things, it's just probably not worth doing this because the only reason you're doing it then is for survival. And frankly, you're probably not doing keys that you need pure survival. And there's not a lot of situations like that. I mean, I've, you know, struggled whatever with DK at times, but it's still mostly like, okay, the healer just heals you a little bit more, or you just kite a little bit more. You know what I mean? There's almost never that time where, oh, if I didn't have that 250k health, I would have got one shot. That almost never happens. Like, almost never. Especially sub, like, probably like 20. You know what I mean? In regular keys, it just never happens. But this is why you do this, because not only is it better, like, it's like the health part is like better for offense and defense now. You understand? So that's what this is. Okay, that's why, question again, I'm using Anima. This is the answer. And I think I'm going to continue to use this for the rest of the expansion. I don't see a reason not to. And the only thing I can think of is once I get the Mount weapon, maybe it'll change my opinion a bit. But frankly, I don't think it will. I think even with that weapon on, you know, armor is the only thing that matters for that weapon. But I think I'd still want to see, because then I could just get another corruption, right? I can get another Echoing Void or Twilight Devastation on top of that. But yeah, I tell you, once you get used to this, it's a little different. The big thing is, of course, you know, way less Death Strikes. It's very weird. The first time I did it, I was like, oh my god, I need Death Strike, but you don't. Like, you're good. You know what I mean? You have so much more health. The healer is going to be able to heal you. You know, any type of percent heal is just going to be so much better. So yeah, that's that. That's why I'm doing this. In terms of trinkets, yeah, just, you know, more healing. I've also used offensive trinkets. I don't have any trinkets that actually help with this. To my knowledge, there's no trinkets that would help with this, but maybe there is. But yeah, just, you know, whatever you got to do to be flexible. So that's the answer. Let me know what you guys think about this. I really do think, unless they nerf the hell out of Twilight Devastation, it's really strong right now, even on single target. But on AoE, obviously it dominates. So Mythic Plus, I mean, this thing is crushing. But yeah, unless they nerf the hell out of this and they make like the best pieces not related to health, like they would basically have to buff the pieces that don't relate to health. Because right now, even after they nerfed Echoing Void, it's still good. It's still really good, actually. Like, it's still very good. For me, you know, it was doing about like 20% of my damage last week. And now it's doing about like, yeah, it's still good. It's still really good. So anyway, that's it. So let me know what you guys think. I look forward to seeing how this develops. But yeah, the more Azerite, 480, that has a ton of stamina on it. The more gear you get, our cloak and our neck are always going to go up. Every day, every week we play, we're going to get more stamina, right? Just for free. You're going to get more stamina on the neck, more stamina on the cloak every single week, right? For a long time now. I mean, maybe the neck's going to plateau at a point where it's going to take multiple weeks, but I think 90% of the time you're going to get one neck upgrade a week and you're going to get one cloak upgrade a week. So this is only going to get better and better over time. You're going to get better uptime on Vision of Perfection, better value out of the other essences, and I guess the minor health too, which I'm not 100% sure on. I'm pretty sure that's probably the case. But yeah, anyway, let me know what you guys think. Otherwise, look forward to talking more about it in stream.